Hi, my name's Chris Cannons and welcome to O-Car. Today we're going to be replacing the alternator on my partner's Mazda 2, but let's get straight into it. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're just going to want to disconnect both terminals on your battery. You just don't want to get electrocuted. This is what makes the electricity for your car. So you're going to need to disconnect these. I've already loosened them. It's just two 10 mils on this one, and pull it off. Just a little bit of wriggling often. Be careful. It's only 12 volts, but you can still electrocute yourself. Didn't realize that was going to come off. Often takes a little bit of wriggling, but it shouldn't be too difficult. Battery's disconnected. Now, this took a little bit of fiddling, but if you can see down in there, the first thing you have to do is you have to take the serpentine belt off the alternator. So just here, if you can see that alternator, you just need to get the serpentine belt off there. If you see way down in here, I have attached, it's probably quite hard to see, but I've managed to get this long wrench with a 14 mil socket on the end. Now this is an actual serpentine belt remover kit, so it's very thin. There's very little room between the pulley and the actual body of the car, so this was quite difficult to get on. I've seen online that some people can do it with a socket. I don't know how you get a ratchet in there, but some people reckon you can do that. So without further ado, let's do that. You just pull it towards you. And then there should, if you're pulling it far enough to whack into this engine mount, you should have enough slack to just pull this off the alternator. It's a little bit difficult, but should come off without too much of a fuss. Now, I like to just, when I'm doing this sort of thing, I like to just leave the belt in the routing that it should be in. You can find diagrams for this sort of thing online. Okay, so next up, we're going to get this bracket off here. Now, I believe it's a 14 mil, which would be convenient if it is. Yep. Just grabbing my ratchet. Okay, so we're removing this nut here. Okay. And I like to keep bolts nice and close to where I've taken them out so I can remember where they go. Pull this bracket off and just kind of pull it out of the way so it's not getting in the way anymore. Okay, that is only just to move out of the way so you can get this off. It's difficult to get this off without that bracket out of the way. That's the only reason you actually have to remove that. Now there's two bolts holding the alternator on, but what we want to do first is remove, if you could just over here, there's this little bugger. So you got to grab that. I believe it's a 12 mil. Whoa. Yep. You ratchet down in there. Okay. Now, the ratchet is getting in the way, so I'm just gonna... Now, obviously, you need a relatively deep socket for this, as there is the bolt poking out of it. But most standard sockets should probably do it. But if you do have a particularly shallow socket, you may have to go get a slightly deeper one. Just be careful not to lose the washer that is on here, unless they're attached. Oh no, hang on. That's actually attached, don't worry about that. Although, don't lose the bolt. Okay, so then you just pull this off. Now, just be careful not to break it. I say, feeling like I might break it. Okay, so that you need to just pull this little tab up here and pull that off. It's a little bit fiddly, I know. All right, now on to the other two, the actual two bolts that actually hold the alternator on. So there's just one up top and then one down below. Just put the, so if we just get it down there. There we go. Okay, this is quite a long bolt. Hang on. There's not enough room. So what you do, this long bolt, there's this here that goes in this clip. You just pull that out of that clip and then this bolt has enough room to come out. And that can go back, but probably don't put that back in until that bolt's back in. Now, the top bolt, which is up here. Now this one shouldn't have the same problem. Okay, so now the alternator should come free, we hope. So we're going to pull it up between this and this. Now with this up here, there should be just enough room for the alternator to come out. Okay, so important thing, I forgot to do this. There's a plug that needs to come out. So if you just come around here, you can see in there, there's where the plug is. And I'll show you on the new alternator as well. Okay, so this took a lot of jiggling, but that's off. Now theoretically, the alternator should now come out. All right, here we go. Here's a fresh alternator. Now, oh, God, that's heavy. All right, so it's got to go in that way. So obviously you're going to want the pulley to be facing out, and you're going to want your little connector to be facing forward. So these slot over either side, and that long bolt goes through the middle of, there's a little mount down there that you'll be able to see. So we're going to put that top bolt in to try and position it somewhat. Okay, so we've just done up this top bolt first, just to finger tight to try and position it a little bit. And then we're going to do the bottom one. Now the bottom one is going to need some shuffling about, but you should sort of be able to feel when it's in position to some degree. Just get it so it feels like it's lining up, and then you should be able to thread that, get that bolt through. There we go. Again, a lot of this is going to be by feel. Okay, now we're going to get down there. I've started it off with my fingers, and we're just going to get down there and try and tighten it up just with a ratchet. Now just make sure to tighten them sort of at the same rate so you're not moving anything about too much. You don't want it to be, the alternator to be too out of position, which it shouldn't be anyway, but just make sure you're not tightening them super unevenly. You know, the alternator's got to be straight for the belt. Yeah. Now, these obviously don't need to be done up crazy tight. I mean, there's probably torque specs, but I don't know them. All right, so now we're going to want to reconnect the two connections. You know, it's going to want to go back on the way. You'll feel it. That clicks in nice and easy. That's not a problem. This guy will also probably just click in. Sorted. Okay, those two are now on. Now you're going to want to put your little bolt back on. And then close that little clip, close that little cover. That's closed off now. Now the serpentine belt has actually fallen off everything, so I'm going to have to pull up a diagram. I'll put a diagram up on screen for this particular car. Cool, all right. All Okay, so then you just, obviously you want to get this off. Off that goes, out that comes. All right, so back in goes this bracket. All right, so last things last, we're just going to reconnect the battery. You preferably don't want it to rain while you're doing this, but it did happen to rain while we were doing it, so that's unfortunate to say the least. There we go. And you tighten up your 10 mils. All right, put your little plastic cover on if you accidentally rip yours off like I did mine. I don't know how that just clips into place. All right, now theoretically, this should start up. But before we do that, don't forget to like and subscribe, and most of all, watch another video. The algorithm will pull one up at the end and just click through, watch it. All right, thanks for watching. Let's start it up.